Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright, hello everyone and welcome to another weekly wrap up. Now I'll be honest, we don't have a ton of books to talk about in this weekly wrap up because I was on a trip with my friend up the North Shore, as I mentioned, and though we did listen to some books together and they were actually rereads for some of my favorite books. So there's that. So what I'm going to do when I get through the books that I read this week is I will give you like reading updates on the 3 books that I'm currently reading. Just to give a little like more content for this because I know you guys really enjoy my really long weekly wrap-ups, but this week there just wasn't a ton to wrap up. That's just how it went. There was a few highly anticipated books though, and as you guys know, I can talk for a really long time about a small amount of books, so maybe this will still be a pretty good length of a story anyway. We'll see about that. So yeah, starting off, we will talk about a book that I have been anticipating kind of for years at this point. And let's discuss how that went. So the first book that I finished was Lord of the Labyrinth by Emma Castle. So this is a Labyrinth reimagined, and Emma Castle wrote books such as The Darkness Within, which was a dystopian romance, as well as Love in the Wild, which was a Tarzan retelling. She also has a few that are erotic titles, and then she also writes as Lauren Smith, who writes historical romance. Okay, so just because she hasn't put out an Emma Castle title in a while, she has been putting out Lauren Smith titles pretty regularly. She has quite a few historical romances, and I've enjoyed a few of them. I've read, I think, like 5 or 6 of her historicals, and I've also read 4 or 5 of her Emma Castle books as well. So this was one that she teased way back when Love in the Wild came out, and it's a book that just took her a while to fully get out and everything, right? And so when I saw that this finally had a release date set up, I actually reached out to her because we'd had a few interactions beforehand and I didn't know if she had an ARC team or what was going on. And I asked, I was like, can I have an ARC of this? I would love to review it. I've been anticipating this book for ages. Please, please, please put it in my hands. I want it really bad. And she was like, yes, as soon as it's ready, I will. Now, there are 2 different covers to this book that will be available. This is the one that I'm showing is the special edition, and you will be able to buy this. So this book is about Katie, our heroine, who is, I believe she's supposed to be in, can't remember if she's started college yet or not. But I do think she is 19, not very old though. She might even be 20. She might be visiting from college. I will admit I don't fully remember that very beginning of the book. But I do know that she has a father and a stepmother, and the stepmother has really alienated her from her father, which, you know, sad day to see that and everything. But our heroine really, really loves her younger stepbrother. And so, you know, she can't fully hate her stepmom because she brought her younger stepbrother, and she's very close with him and adores him. And on her way home, I believe it is to visit for the holidays, she actually hits an owl and injures this owl, and she brings him home with her to care for him. Now, he does begin to heal very rapidly, but this big snowy owl is just so beautiful, and so she actually talks to it a little bit. And what she doesn't know is that this big, beautiful owl is actually a fae lord. And he had actually been in kind of like a fight that was happening, and it had thrown him into the mortal realm, where he is able to be a owl in owl form. And he got hit by her car, and it was a minor inconvenience to him because, again, he is healing right away. But he plays up his injury just a little bit because he's fascinated by this human creature. He thinks she's beautiful, and he decides that he wants to claim her as his. And so to do that, though, he needs her to, like, make a wish. Because from what I gather, if she makes a wish, he can grant it, and then she can owe him something. So, like, he's trying to get her to make a wish. And by the end of this prologue, she does make a wish that she would be, I can't remember what the exact words were, but she makes a wish of some kind of like wanting to be away from the world, and like just not have to deal with some of the problems that she does, because again, things are tough for her when she comes home to visit. Being around her stepdad, or her dad and her stepmom just don't treat her well, you know? And she just really only came home to see her younger brother anyway. And so this wish that she makes, even though it is a bit, let's say, like not exactly what she wished, he is able to use his fae trickery to say, oh, that's it. That's the wish I needed. I'm taking you with me. And he steals her away to the fae realm, where he now, you know, is fully the fae lord that he is. And he's planning to take her and make her his, I mean, he doesn't really say she's going to be like his fake queen or anything. You know, he kind of more just wants to keep her and have her as his pet. So when she awakens, she is, of course, horrified and thinks this is a dream and is like, I can't be here. I need to get home. And he's like, no, 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 no. You belong to me now. What do you think? You can't leave me. And they end up making a bargain. And he brings her brother to the Fae realm, but he puts her little brother in prison. Now, in this story, the little brother isn't like a baby. You know, if you've seen like Labyrinth or know that story, like it's a much younger child. They have it where he is kind of like a preteen age or like young boy. Like he's not a baby anyway, but still they put him in like this, to her it seems like prison. And then the Lord, Roan is his name. He has actually other fae taking care of her brother. He just wants her to think that the brother is in danger, and gets her to make a bargain with him. And during the day, she will try to find her way to the center of his labyrinth, because he is Lord of the Labyrinth. And at night, she will let him do whatever he wants to her. So he is fully confident she will never make it to the center of the labyrinth, and he will get to keep her with him forever. So there you go. Now, there is also other fae in this fae world who are also trying to, at the same time, challenge him and defeat his type of the fae. So there's also a bit of danger going on in the fae realm as well, and enemies that he has to worry about. So this was a very interesting setup. I mean, this is basically then like a fantasy romance, because we spend most of our time in the fae realm. And I was so excited for this book, and there was a lot that was fun about it. But I have to be honest, it fell pretty flat for me by the end. I think this book had a really good, you know, premise, and the idea of it was really cool, but it got very flat very quickly, because this is an insta-love situation. Like, he sees her and he wants her, but it also didn't fully seem like they were fated mates or anything. So then it just seemed a bit like this fae lord fell for this very young human and just wanted to take her and make her his own and use her sexually, have her be his sexual partner, because let's not use euphemisms. He wants to bang her real bad and make her his mistress. And the reason of why is just baffling to me. Like, there wasn't, to me, a purpose of what he wanted her for. Like, he was just covetous of her and he wanted her, and then she wants to get away. And so, I believe if someone gives her the idea to make a bargain, that's why the bargain comes up. Because they're like, he's the king of bargaining. If there's something that you want, see if you can tease him into that, I think. So that's maybe where the bargain comes from. But I didn't really understand the purpose. And then also, she really lets him start like touching her and doing stuff to her kind of like right away, because he says, well, you promised that I could have you at night. And she's like, I mean, I didn't really, you forced me into this. So she very much capitulates to him finger banging her kind of right from the start. The final sexual act does kind of wait till near the end of the book, but he is getting her off pretty much the whole thing, like sometimes her wanting him to, sometimes her not. And I don't know, I just wasn't as charmed by this story as I wanted to be. And, you know, I know that I'd been building up in my head what this story was about for a really... So part of that could also be my fault, but I won't pretend that I wasn't a little bit let down with how it all played out. Like, I'll just be real. I was pretty let down with how it ended up happening. Now, I didn't hate it by any means. I don't think it was badly written. And it also isn't overly long. Like, this book was, I believe, 320 pages. So if this had been 500 pages, I would have been much less forgiving of it. At the end of the day, it just kind of feels to be a really good concept. It's a really pretty book to look at, but it didn't work for me as well as I wanted it to. So I'm saying it, I'm putting it out there. I think it could have been better done, but I'm really glad that I got to read it. I hope that Lauren Smith continues to put out more titles under Emma Castle and maybe goes back to some of her kind of like, you know, like The Darkness Within was a bit of a like darker romance, you know, it was dystopian. Like I would be okay if she wrote some like that before. There's also Midnight with the Devil, which is a darker one. I think I like that style of her books a bit better, is what I would say. Okay, next up, we will talk about the 2 books that I read with my friend on the trip. Now, these are throwback books. These are also YA sci-fi, so I understand if you don't care about them, but they're some of my favorite books of all time. Like, they're in my top reads ever. And since we're rereading them right now, I decided that we'll talk about it here, and I'll go into maybe a bit of depth about the story, because these books are, this first book, you guys, is literally 13 years old at this point. It's over a decade old already, which is crazy. And I just think these books hold up so well. Okay, like I first read them about a decade ago. The 4th book in the series wasn't out yet. And Sarah and I actually read them together as well back then. And then when we went on our trip, I was like, let's listen to the Lunar Chronicles. So we did. So I'm going to talk to you about these. And I am planning to finish my reread of the series. But if you don't care about these ones, skip ahead to the other romance books. But these are great. Particularly, I love the audiobooks. These are narrated by Rebecca Soler, who also narrates the Fourth Wing books. In fact, I have mentioned before that the reason why I listened to Fourth Wing was because Rebecca Soler narrated it and because I love her from these books. Her voice is just very comforting to me, and I just really appreciate the way that she tells a story. So I read Fourth Wing because of these, you know, so if you like listening to her read Fourth Wing, maybe give these a try, because though the romance is very like slim in this series, it is YA, and it's even a bit on the younger side of YA. Like I have a niece who is 10, and my sister is actually going to let her start reading these. You know, she is pretty advanced for 10, but I think that, you know, any young like teen or even some preteen could get on with this because they're exciting. But anyway, how this starts. So we have the Lunar Chronicles. This takes place far in the future, right? And we have Lynn Cinder, who is a cyborg. She has a metal hand and foot, and she has some complex wiring inside of her. She has a net screen. She's able to see within her eyesight and be able to have it tell her certain things. And she basically has a stepmother. So she was adopted when she was young. She doesn't remember this really at all. And there was a man named Lynn Garin who had adopted her and perfected some of her cyborg parts. But he died not long after he adopted her. And his wife, Lynn Audrey, is now the stepmother to her, and she has 2 daughters, Pearl and Peony. And she is not happy to have Cinder. She sees her husband as having left her with this defective human that she's now responsible, well, not even human, she doesn't see her as human, this defected being that she's supposed to take care of, and she basically uses her as a slave. Cinder is a mechanic, and so she will fix different mechanical things. That sounds so dumb, sorry. And this book actually starts with her at a market with her stand running. There's her and her little android buddy named Aiko, who we love Aiko so much. When Prince Kai, who is the crown prince of the Commonwealth, his father is very ill. His father has a disease right now called leishmaniasis, which is this plague that has been ravaging the world, and there's no cure for it. But he has brought his little android, Nancy, to be fixed by Cinder because he's heard she's the best mechanic in the area, which why a like 17-year-old is supposedly the best mechanic in the area. It's a YA sci-fi, so of course she is, right? And he is wearing a disguise when he comes to ask her to help fix Nancy, and she agrees to do this. And then, you know, her and Kai have kind of this cute interaction together. He doesn't know that she's an android because she always wears gloves all the time to hide her one metal hand. But they have this cute interaction. She agrees to fix Nancy. And so that's going on. I won't walk through the entire thing of this story, but that's kind of the setup. It starts with a meet cute with Kai and Cinder. They have this great little interaction. And then we start to back up and we see what's happening in the world. So again, Kai's father is dying, the emperor. And, you know, just straight up, we know, like, there's not much time left. Kai is going to be the next emperor soon. So he, I believe, is 19, 18, going on 19. And then there is also a colony on the moon, right? So there's a reason why this is called the Lunar Chronicles. There is a queen on the moon named Queen Levana, and she is what's called a lunar because she lives on the moon. And the lunars have special abilities. It's called the lunar magic, but really it is they have powers where they're able to glamour and persuade people who, you know, humans mostly, and other lunars to some degree as well. And Queen Levana this is a bit of a like Snow White mixed with a Cinderella situation. Now, Cinder is more of the Cinderella, but Levana represents kind of like the evil queen in Snow White, which as you go through the series, you'll see why, because we do have a character who's like Snow White later on, but she's a bit like the evil queen in that, and that is because Queen Levana, her glamour when you meet her in person is one of the most stunning that you've ever seen. But over computer screens, you can't use glamour on someone because you're not actually using magic, right? You're messing with the other person's mind. So you're not really changing what you look like. You're changing how they perceive you looking at them, okay? And this is kind of cool because one of the benefits of Cinder's programming that was, you know, put into her wiring when her cyborg parts were put into her to actually save her life when she was young. That is when some people will become cyborgs, right? Was when they're close to dying, or if a limb is getting chopped off, you can have that put on you. But in her net display, when she perceives a lie, or her programming perceives a lie, it will illuminate a little orange light that tells her something isn't true, that something's a lie. And this is going to be very important throughout our series because whenever there is either someone lies to her, like let's use an example of her asking her stepmother if she can go to the ball that's going to be held, which will be a coronation party and annual festival for Prince Kai, because again, the emperor is going to die and Kai is going to be made emperor. And Lynn Audrey says, of course you can go to the ball when you get your work done, and a little orange light will come on, and so she knows I'm not going to get a go no matter what, right? And so I'm explaining all these bits and pieces, but there's all these things going on. And as Cinder begins to pay attention to some things that pop up, especially with her interactions with Kai, and when she works on the android that he has given her to fix, this android was doing some very important work for Kai when her programming went down. And when Cinder works on fixing her, she discovers that one, there was a little bug that was implanted in Nancy, and two, there was this comm chip that allows for certain transmissions to be made without like Nancy even knowing about it. And when Cinder sees the information that Nancy was looking into, she realizes it's stuff that Levana will not be happy for Earthens to be looking into. Because here's the thing. There is the Eastern Commonwealth, which is supposed to be kind of like the Asian area, but there are other leaders on Earth as well. And they're all in kind of a union together, right? They're in some kind of like council or United Nations type of thing together. And Queen Levana, they're wanting to have a treaty with her, a peace treaty with her, and she refuses to sign it unless she gets some certain capitulations. And one of those major capitulations is she wants a foothold within one of the nations on Earth, and the Eastern Commonwealth is the biggest and most prosperous of them. And so she wanted a marriage alliance. Now, she first tried to get this marriage alliance with Kai's father. And when that was not happening, when it wasn't possible, and now that's the name of the girl. When Emperor Kaito has passed, she now moves on to Kai and is trying to pressure him into marrying her. And there are many different uses she will do to do this. Now, the final aspect I'll mention, because I'm not telling you the whole story, even though it might seem like I am, there is also this thing that has to do with leishmaniasis, right? Now, leishmaniasis is a plague. We have no cure for it. Now, there is a team of researchers. One of them is led up by this funny little researcher man named Dr. Erlund, who is doing experiments to try to find a cure. And one of the things that is happening is there is a cyborg draft, because this scientist supposedly says that cyborgs happen to have, I don't know how to explain it. You'd have to, I can't remember what his words are for what he needs, because it's all made up anyway, right? For why cyborgs are the best test subjects to find a cure for leishmaniasis. And at one point, Cinder comes in contact with Dr. Erlund, and he starts to suspect that there is something very special about Cinder, and the exact percentage of her that is cyborg, as well as why she doesn't have memories before a certain time. There's just a lot of things about Cinder that are very curious to all of us. Okay, so all of that I've just emptied out, I know it was a whole bunch, but I think that this is a very well planned series. Having read this series 2 times before, this is the 3rd time I'm reading it. There are so many pieces of the puzzle that it is so obvious that Marissa Meyer had in place already. You can see throughout this story, right? Like, this 4-book series is set up so well. There are little hints for everything right from the start. And I just love when that happens, because it makes a reread so enjoyable, right? And my friend Sarah, as I said, she's only read this series once before. And so there was a lot that she forgot. And so she kept trying to guess things that were going to happen. And it was so fun to watch, because as she would remember things, she was like, wow, they warned us about that already. And I was like, yeah, they did. Isn't it so cool? Like, there were just so many moments that were so much fun. And I just think that is so well done of Marissa Meyer. I love the characters. They're so rich and full. I love Kai. I feel for him so much. And I love Cinder. She's just such a great character. And though sometimes she makes you want to slap her upside the head, because we're like, get to the point faster, I also understand, because, I mean, not only is this YA, but like, the scope of where this story goes, you just can't know from the beginning. So this is a 5-star book for me. Absolutely. Again, there is teeny bits of romance throughout the series, but it's definitely more of a like group book. Though there is, by the time you get to the end of the series, there is a happily ever after book that came out that has a few weddings, let's just say, in it. But there was this one, 5-star. Then we had Scarlet, which I'll be more careful talking about this one, because I don't want to spoil things for Cinder. If you want to try these again, I'll have links to these down below. I just highly, highly, highly recommend you listen to the books and just enjoy yourself so much. These are so fantastic. Even reading these now at 32, I was having the time of my life, and I had to stop myself because I listened to these on my trip, but when I got back, I had other stuff I had to read, and it was so hard to stop myself because I just wanted to continue binging the rest of the series. But if you saw my TBR for August, you'll see I am going to continue with Cress very soon. But anyway, so to give you just a few hints about Scarlet, this one is obviously a Little Red Riding Hood retelling. And in this one, we have Scarlet Benoit, who is, I believe she's 19 years old, if I'm correct. And look at the pretty art in here. And she lives in France, and her grandmother is missing. And that is where this story starts. Her grandmother is missing, and she can't get anyone to pay attention to it. She can't get the authorities to take it seriously because her grandma was seen as eccentric. Her grandmother is a retired military pilot. She lives on this farm. And Scarlet has lived with her grandmother for the last few years, ever since things went bad, like with her father. She's lived with her grandmother, and her grandmother has been gone for 18 days, and no one will take it seriously. No one will give her a time of day. And she has had enough. And so she has come into town, and she's going to find out what happened to her grandmother. And while she's doing that, she runs into this guy named Wolf, who is a street fighter and is looking for work on a farm, because he wants to get out of the street fighting game, as it were. And Scarlet is like, really not focused on work at this moment, so sorry, I don't really have time for this, but thanks for offering, whatever. But this Wolf guy, he keeps popping up in different places. And so with Wolf's help, we'll say, she goes on an adventure to try to find her grandmother. And along the way, she does happen to run into her dad, who comes back to the farm and is desperately looking for something, says that her grandmother hid something. He has been tortured. We see he has been we hear these bits, right? He's heard that he's been tortured and forced to burn himself. So he has these burns all up and down his arms that he's saying things like, I was forced to do it, which make no sense to Scarlet. But to us, who have read Cinder, will start to see these different things pop up or whatever. And it becomes very clear that Queen Lavanna has more people that she's manipulating than just Prince Kai, right? And particularly what we find out is this 18 days that her grandmother has been missing align with Cinder being the information that Cinder found on Nancy, the android, okay? Which, remember, there was a spy chip in Nancy. And the time that Scarlet's grandmother's been missing aligns with some information that we found out in Cinder. That's all I'll say about that. But I'm just trying to show you how those things will click together. Now, again, to not spoil what's happening with Cinder, this is a series where we add the POVs of the new characters. That's part of the reason why the books get bigger every time. So we still very much have Cinder and Kai's point of view. We also get our first POV actually of Carswell Thorne, who is the hero in book 3, but he enters our story in this book. Him and Cinder have some interactions, which is great. But we get Scarlet's POV and eventually Wolf's POV, and then we have Cinder and Kai's POV, and we have Thorne's POV. Now we only get one of his POVs, right? He's not in there a lot in this one. But this is a story where we build the POVs as we go. So we are still very much following Cinder because this is her story. Let's be clear, everyone else's stories revolve around hers as we go. But Cinder and Kai are kind of the main thing. And in this book, she is very much on opposite sides of something as Kai, and she really is on the run with certain information she got from the last time. So this is absolutely thrilling. This one has some pretty dark stuff in it. I meant to say, this series, it's crazy to me. I mean, I love it in a way because it's not dwelt on the way it would be in, let's say, a dark romance. Certain things would be dwelt on, okay? But there are definitely really dark aspects in here, right? Like in this one, we see some pretty gruesome deaths from this plague. We also see Cinder is neglected. She's being gaslit by Audrey, and she is tortured by certain memories that she can't fully comprehend. She's used as a lab rat. She's threatened to die of plague herself. It's a tough thing to read. And then in this one, we see torture happen. We see manipulation happen. We see some assaults happen. Nothing like sexual assaults, but some things really threatened in here. And a lot of gun violence in all of them. They may be space guns, but there's a lot of that. So nothing, again, that scared me as a younger person. But again, I read these the first time when I was 20, so it's not like I was super young. But I was rereading these to see as well if my niece can handle them, and there's nothing in here that's scarier than HP or Percy Jackson, which are other stories she's read, so she definitely can read those. So those are the first 2 books in the Lunar Chronicles. I am absolutely sure I will be reading some more of them, but I Just loved it so much. And I think if you look very, very far back, I may have even reviewed these at the very beginning of my channel. I don't know, but it was fun to revisit those. And like I said, I wanted to dive into those a little bit because I don't really talk about stuff outside of romance anymore these days. I just don't. That's not what I like to read. But every year I like to read a few books that are non-romance, and those ones were excellent for sure. Okay, moving on into another one here. There was Hardly a Gentleman by Eloisa James. So this book was one that I did actually receive this book copy from Eloisa. Her assistant sent me a copy of this. And I did get approved for an ALC from NetGalley, but I got approved for the ALC when the book had already been out for like a month, right? Like it was weird. It was kind of like they went back through and were just approving some random people. And I just didn't get around to the book, right? I've been really bad about getting to historicals, even though I can't stop saying yes to them because I want to be more of a historical reader. But I will say my friend Erin had actually read this and she was just sharing how funny it was and what a good time she had. And so when I had my crafters retreat last weekend that I went to, I was like, you know what? This is the perfect book to listen to while I'm surrounded by the ladies while we're crocheting and doing everything. And so this book takes place in the Highlands. So this is a Scottish laird and a feisty heroine. And neither of them want to get married, but I would say the laird decides he wants to get married a lot quicker than she does, we'll just say. But the way the story starts out is our heroine, Clara, she is very well-breasted, let's just say. And she isn't even, in her words, not mine, particularly beautiful, but she is very well endowed, and it has been a curse of hers. And in fact, I can't remember if he's the regent or the king. I think it is the king. What year is this? Let me see if it says the year. I think it says the year. In 1803, there would be a king at that time. So I believe it is the king or the prince. It's Prince George. Okay, it's Prince George is obsessed with her and he wants to make her his mistress and he will literally slaver over her. And there, you know, she tries to hide from him, but of course she still has to go to these events and he's just so like pushy about it. Even so much like disrespecting his wife like in front of her. And then of course she's the one who takes the brunt of that, even though she's done nothing but be, you know, have large breasts, like really. And her mother doesn't really help her out because she dresses her in dresses that do not help. And so Clara is in this tough situation because nobody wants to marry her because they don't want to go against the crown prince, but also he can't marry her because he's married. And so what ends up happening is she doesn't get any marriage, you know, proposals. And yet she's still forced to go to these events where he gawks and slavers over her all the time. And it's just, I felt for her so much. My poor sweet girl, what she has to go through with this cad of a prince just all over her. And kind of the inciting incident of this story is that she's at a garden party and she literally is so sad, you guys. Like, I was like, Eloisa James, you are harsh, girl. Like, this may be a comedy, but like, I was so crying for her. She gets shat on by a bird right on her chest. And Prince George doesn't waste a single second with taking his handkerchief and shoving it in her cleavage to wipe up the excrement so that he can fondle her. Okay? She literally gets fondled through bird shit in public by this disgusting cretin of a prince. Okay? It is like, it's so gross. She is humiliated. And then her mother finds a way to blame her. Okay? Because, of course, let's gaslight that way and blame her for men being assholes, right? So she's horrified. And her mother, I think, is kind of like sending her to the country for a bit. And when she is going to the country, she ends up running into this guy who's there to pick up a housekeeper for this Scottish laird in the Highlands. And she decides she wants to go on an adventure because she just wants to be away from the world for a while. And she's like, I know a bit about running a household. And so she decides to go with, okay? Now, it's very obvious to pretty much everyone that she's not a housekeeper, but you know what? They go along with it anyway. And when she shows up at Scotland, she is at this absolutely decrepit household, and this laird has let his life go completely to shit. He's let it all just crumble to shit, and she is a bit flabbergasted at it all, a bit shocked, a bit horrified. But as soon as they meet each other, there's this crazy spark. Now, our hero, Kaylin, is actually a widower, and let's just say he is sad his wife died, but everybody else makes a much bigger deal about how sad he is than he does, all right? He loved his wife, but they didn't exactly have the ideal marriage that everyone likes to pretend that they did, and even his own wife liked to pretend that they did. But really, she didn't want much to do with him. She just liked the idea of him. And that has kind of left him in this like weird state where like he like goes further and further into seclusion, and people just think he's grieving more and more and more than he actually is. So it's this weird thing. But then when he meets our heroine, he's kind of shocked out of it, literally, because she comes across him naked in the pond. He likes to go fishing down there and swim in the pond, and she comes across him naked. And they just have this crazy banter. And very quickly, he A, realizes she's not a housekeeper, and B, decides that he wants to marry her. Now, from her point of view, she can't possibly see how he would want to marry her so quickly, and he must be lustful for her as well. And she's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be with someone who only wants me for that. And also, he so clearly was in love with his dead wife. That's what everyone says. So I don't want to deal with any of that. It's a bit of a sticky situation for everyone, but he goes about convincing her that he will love her and want her. And this was funny. The townspeople were hilarious. And he did actually look at grief in a kind of interesting way. So one person that I thought was annoying, but I actually found her quite sweet by the end, is Kaylin's like previous mother-in-law. I don't want to call her ex-mother-in-law because like she isn't his mother-in-law anymore, but also he did really care for her daughter, but she is also always talking about her dead daughter and how much she misses her. And again, you think she's going to be a really annoying character, but she does actually want Kaylin to find happiness again, and watching her like encourage him to find love eventually was really sweet as well. So there definitely were some positives to it, and it wasn't as sad and heartbreaking as it first appeared. But yeah, this to me was definitely a comedy. There was a lot of funny parts to it. And again, it even handles grief in like an interesting way. And I just thought it was so fun. Now, it was kind of ridiculous at the same time. So I did end up giving it 4 stars though, but I had such a good time reading it. It really was worth it. I haven't read an Eloisa James in ages. I really haven't. So I had a really, really good time with this one. I gave it 4 stars, and it was a 2 on the Spice scale. Okay, and then the last book that I finished was a new release, which was The Sun and Her Burn by Gianna Darling. And this is book 2 in the Impossible universe, and I really, really don't want to say too much about it because honestly, the whole thing is a spoiler, okay? What I will say is that book 1, which was The Moon and His Tides, that was an age gap MMF romance, where our hero Sebastian was 18. He becomes a chauffeur for this married couple named Adam and Savannah. And we see their adventure into falling in love. And I will say things don't end up rosy and peachy at the end of book 1 because this is a trilogy and there was a painful cliffhanger, okay? Then there is The Sun and Her Burn, and we get introduced to a new heroine, let's just say. But did we? I don't know. By the end of this book, I was so into it. And then I was devastated again because Gianna Darling does not spare us the pain, you guys. She does not. And when I finished the book, I was so mad. But like, it was so well done. Like, she shook me. She shocked me. She shook me, okay? And the reason I want to say is like, this is a trilogy. And I understand that some people will not want to read this till book 3 comes out. And I completely understand. I'm not pushing you to read it early at all. I'm not, because it was torture for me to have to stop where I stopped and be like, I can't know what's going to happen now. Like, are you joking? Like, it was traumatic. I'm not even being dramatic. Like, it was traumatic to have to stop there and not know what's going on. Like, when I finished it, I wanted to give it 3 stars, but I didn't. It was so good. Like, she is making me feel so many feelings, and I honestly have nowhere to go. And when I was done with it, I sat for a little bit because I was like, I am not going to give it 3 stars. I ended at a 4.5 because, damn, she made me feel so many feels. Like, it is so good. And what I was thinking back is, like, it really reminds me of Sierra Simone. Okay. Now, if you have read a Sierra Simone trilogy, maybe you're hanging out for Bitter Burn like I am, just in agony waiting for that story to end. If you've read a trilogy by Sierra Simone, you know what she does to you. And it's that same type of feeling. Okay, so same type of feeling where we're torn apart, we've had all the feels, we're so angsty, we're horny, we're all the things, and then someone gets torn apart at the end. But you know that HEA is coming and it's going to be good, okay? And that is how I feel about this trilogy, okay? I don't know when the 3rd book is coming. Once the 3rd book is out and we got it, then I will really tell everyone to read it. But it's tough, man. It's also tough because, again, I don't want to call it non-traditional because I don't want to scare people. Like, there will be an HEA, okay? But it hasn't been traditional up to this point. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to say anymore. Like, truly, I'm not going to say anymore. But the throuple that I am rooting for, will I get it? Is this going to be something, like, I don't know what the HEA will be. I know I will get one, but will it be the one I expect? Will I like it? I don't know. So I'm rocking back and forth like I have a problem. Anyway, so I gave it 4.5. It's a 4 on the spice scale. We got all the juicy things. This is MMF. There is sword crossing in here. There's BDSM. There is voyeurism. There is praise and degradation. This has restraints. This has double penetration. Like, it's got it going on. Okay? And I love Sebastian and Adam so much. I love them so much. So yeah. Okay, there we go. That is what I've read. I realized I did end up talking for 40 minutes. So I don't think I really need to talk about the other books I'm reading. I am reading Spark by Lauren Rowe. I have an audiobook of that. I am rereading Hold the Line by Julia Wolf. I'm reading that for a patron. And I'm reading Precious Hazard, which comes out on the 31st. So that is what I'm currently reading right now, which will be in the next weekly wrap up. So I still found a way to talk for 40 minutes. Yes, I did. Again, I'll have links to all the books that I talked about down below. Let me know what you loved reading this week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.